Hey guys, Master here, welcome back to another video. In today's video I'm going to be reviewing the IFA3 or Iron Front Armor 3 all-in-one light mod. So basically what this mod does is it introduces World War II assets and units into Armor 3. And today we're going to be looking at the weapons that this mod contains. So here they all are. And we're going to start off with the Russian weapons. Sorry, not the Russian weapons, the German weapons. So the first one we have is the Gewehr 33/40, or the G33/40. So if we go ahead and grab it out of here, here it is. It fires 7.92 by 57mm Mauser in a 5-round internal magazine fed by stripper clips, which you will see right now. There they are. It can fit a bayonet, which I do not have sadly, and it can fire about 30 rounds a minute. It was produced between 1934 and 1942 and was during the campaign of, well, the capture of Czechoslovakia. It was put into service. So let's hear this thing fire. Okay, that was the G33/40. Next up we have the Kar98K early, Kar98K late, and the Kar98K with the ZF39 scope. So the early and the late, as you can see, are very similar, just different in colour and a few cosmetic changes. You can see where the hand is and where the hand is, that's different. But apart from that, they're practically identical. So I'll go ahead and grab one of them to show you. There's the late one. So I'll grab the early one, so you can have a look at that. The late one does have a different iron sight to use, but I'll let you find that out when you download the mod yourself, if you can. Actually, it should be visible here. Yeah, you see? There's a circle, whereas this one's just a straight point. But let's hear this fire, shall we? I'll do 5 rounds, reload, another 5 rounds, and then I'll switch over to the one with the scope. So that was the Kar98K without the scope, and here is the Kar98K with the scope, with the ZF39 scope. Now, I've got to say, the Kar98K series is one of the most famous rifles out there. It's also known as Cars by Allied troops, and it fires 7.92 by 57, similar to the G33/40, in a 5-round internal magazine fed by stripper clips, which is exactly the same as G33. It can also fit a bayonet and a rifle grenade for the one without the scope, and it does 48 rounds per minute on average. It was produced between 1935 and 1945. So if we have a look at the scope, this is what you see. And let's hear it fire and see it fire. And I've actually run out of ammo for it, so I'll have to go grab some more of that, and that is not compatible, apparently. That's not good. Oh right, that's the one that's using the G41, which we'll get to soon. So that was the Kar98k ZF39. Now we have the G41 and G43. So there is the G41, lighter colour, and there's the G43, darker colour. So I'm going to be reviewing these separately because they are both nice and I love the way they fire. So it does. So G41 and G43 are known as the Gewehr 41 and Gewehr 43. It fires at 7.92 by 57mm Mauser in a 10 round external magazine, which can be reloaded using. Sorry, for the G41, it's an internal magazine fed by clips. It does 30 rounds per minute, so it's used between 1941 and 1945. So we'll hear this fire and see it fire, and then we'll move on to G43. And that was the G41 or Gewehr 41. So now we move on to the G43, which is here. We'll grab that extra clip for it, which should be able to be reloaded. I wouldn't see why it can't. But anyway, so G41. G43 is a 10 round external magazine which can be taken apart and could theoretically be reloaded using clips, although I don't know if it can in Arma. Fires 30 rounds per minute. I was just between 1943 and 1945, hence Gewehr 43. So let's hear this thing fire. So that was the Gewehr 43, and I would like to point out that these guns have quite a bit of recoil on them. I'm not gonna lie, that was completely not me forcing the recoil on that. It just has heavy amounts of recoil. So moving on, we now have the MP38/MP40, which are here. So I'll grab the MP40 because that's the most known variant. So MP38, MP40. Now these, they're also known as the Schmeiser to Allied troops, and they fire 9x90mm parabellum in a 32 round magazine. 550 rounds per minute, which is quite fast, and they were produced between 1938 and 1945. So there we are, good visual look of the gun, and now we move on to firing. And both the MP38 and MP40 have similar performance and sound and everything. So we shall now go ahead and look at the second table of general weapons, and we start off with the STG-44, or the MP44 as it's known in this mod. STG-44 stands for Sturmgewehr 44, and MP obviously stands for machine and pistol. So it fires 7.90 by 33mm Kurtz in a 30 round magazine, fires 600 rounds per minute, and it was produced between 1943 and 1945. And by God do I love this gun. A lot of people say that the AK copied this gun, but that's wrong. I don't know the full facts behind it, but I just know that that is wrong. So let us have a look and have a listen of how this fires. And that was the MP44. So now we move on to the FG42G. So the FG42G, also known as Fallschirmjäger Gewehr 42, fires a 7.92mm by 57mm round in a 20 round magazine. It can fit a bayonet, which actually if we press F you can see there's the bayonet option. I have not equipped one right now, but you can. It also comes with a bipod, and it fires 950 rounds per minute. It was produced between 1943 and 1945 for use on the paratroopers that the German army has, so the Fallschirmjäger. So let's hear this thing, because this is beautiful. So yeah, the reloading animation is a bit off there, but we can live with that because of how beautiful this gun is. But now we move on to the most famous German machine guns of World War II. And I would argue and say they are still the most famous German machine guns in the world. They are the MG34 and MG42. So we'll start off with the MG34. So the MG34 fires a 7.92 by 57mm Mauser round in a 50 round drum or drum magazine, or in a 250 round belt. It fires 1,000 rounds a minute and was produced between 1935 and 1945. So I'm pretty sure we all know what an MG34 looks like. It's got the bipod as well. So let's hear this thing fire. And that was the MG34. Now I've just realised that something I didn't do before I started this review is grab some earplugs from the arsenal. So we're going to grab the MG42 because we're going to need earplugs for the MG42. The MG42, also known as Hitler's Buzzsaw, fires 7.90 by 57mm Mauser in a 50 round drum, or again a 250 round belt, and it fires 1200 rounds a minute. Now that's, gotta say, that's a lot of rounds. As we find, there we are, earplugs. And it was produced between 1942, hence the name, and 1945. So we're gonna set this thing up like this, and we're gonna put earplugs in. Alright, let's hear this thing fire. And that was the MG42, the best machine gun of World War II, I would argue. So now we move on to the pistols that the German army used during World War II, or the Wehrmacht. And the first one is the Po8 Luger, which is the furthest one there, you see. Also, yeah, I forgot to show you what these guns look like on a table. So there you are. But yeah, so Po8 Luger. It fires 9.90mm Parabellum in an 8-round magazine. It does 120 rounds per minute and was produced between the years 1900s and then 1943. And this was often praised as a war trophy and was taken from dead or alive German officers. So let's hear this thing fire. So that was the Po8 Luger. Next up we have the C96 Mauser. So the C96 Mauser fires 9x19mm Parabellum, as the Po8 does, in a 10-round internal magazine fed by triplets this time. Apparently it has 900 rounds per minute, but I don't think that's too accurate. I would guess it was around 120, maybe 100, like the Po8 Lugers. And it was produced between 1896 and 1937. So let's hear it. So yeah, sadly not the most realistic of reloading animations, but not all of them are as realistic as you'd hope. Next gun is the P38 Walther. It fires 9x19mm Parabellum in an 8-round magazine and does 160 rounds per minute. It was produced between 1938 and 1945, and it was basically the standard pistol. So let's have a look and listen to this. And that is the P38 Walther. Now, the last pistol for the German army, or Wehrmacht, is the Walther PBK. It fires 7.65 by 17mm Browning SR in a 7-round magazine. It does 150 rounds per minute and was produced between 1935 and 1945. Very small pistol, gotta say. Compared to the other pistols, it's quite small. It's just a cut-off version of the P38, isn't it? Alright, let's hear this thing fire. And that was the Walther PPK, sorry. So now, that is the German weapons done, or the Wehrmacht weapons. Now we move on to the good old US of A weapons. So to start off, we have the M1903a3, which is this one, and the M1903a4 Springfield, which is the one with the scope. So not much difference apart from the fact that one of them has a scope and one of them doesn't. So we'll bring both of them out for a test. They both fire .30-06, which is 7.62 by 63mm, in a 5-round internal magazine fed by clips. The M1903a3 can fit a bayonet and does 20 rounds per minute, as well as, actually they both do, and they were both produced between 1903 and 1949. So let's hear this thing fire, shall we? So that is all we're going to do with the M1903a3, and we're going to move on to the M1903a4 Springfield, which has the scope, so I'll let you have a look at that. And there you are. So that is the M1903a3/A4. Now we move on to the M1 Garand, possibly one of the most famous American rifles in World War II. It fires .30-06, which is also again 7.60 by 63mm, in an 8-round internal magazine fed by clips. It can also fit a bayonet and does 50 rounds a minute. It's produced between 1934 and 1957, but I know what you all want. You all want to hear the ping, so let's see if it can ping. So yes, the Garand can ping. Beautiful, isn't it? Right, moving on, we have the M1 Carbine, or Carbine, however you say it. It's also known as the pea shooter. It fires .30 carbine in a 15-round magazine, and it does 100 rounds per minute. It was produced between 1942 and 1945, and this is what it looks like. So yeah, it's also got the strap, which is hidden by the table. But let's see how this fires. So that was the M1 Carbine, or M1 Carbine. Next up we have the M1a1 Carbine, or M1a1 Carbine. Now this is the paratrooper variant of the M1 Carbine, and it fires .30 carbine in a 15-round magazine, and exactly the same as the M1 Carbine. So it'll shoot the same, sound the same, but we're going to shoot it anyway. Alright, we'll only do one magazine, but you can see the difference. That's the M1, that's the M1a1. So yeah, much lighter to help with the lightness of a paratrooper's gear, basically. So now we move on to the last gun on this table, the M3 grease gun. It fires .45 ACP in a 30 round magazine and does 450 rounds per minute. It was produced between... Oh, I didn't pick up any out for it apparently. Or maybe there isn't any. Does this not fit this? Of course it does not. So, it was produced between 1943 and 1945, and we're just going to quickly run over to the arsenal to grab some ammo for it. Because apparently I packed the wrong one for it. Which is slightly annoying, I would say. So there we are. And let's fire it. And that was the M3 grease gun. So that is all that we're going to do on this table, and we move on to the second table of American weapons. And we start off with the... I forgot to flip the page, 1 second. The M1928 Thompson. So this one here. So the M1928 and the M1928a1 both fire... No. Where is it? Is this the one? This is the one. So we're going to swap this out here, because the M1928 Thompson was the original gangster. There we are. How gangsters does that look? But yeah, so this is the M1928 Thompson. That's the M1928a1 Thompson, and that's the M1a1 Thompson. So we'll do a shot of this, shot of that, and then we'll have a look at, and then we'll do a shot of this one. So start off. Let's go. So that is the M1928. We move on to the M1919a6 Minor differences, but not a lot, as you can see. So we'll shoot this. And now we move to the M1a1, which has the most difference compared to all of the three Thompsons that we have here. So let's have a look. God, it's so much better. It even has a fancy reloading animation. So yeah, all the same, apart from the fact that they all fire .45 ACP. They all can fit 30 round magazines, and the first two have 800 rounds per minute. The last one has 700 round per minute fire rate, and they were all produced between 1928 and 1971. So now we move on to the M1918a2 BAR. Here it is. Rest it up on here. It fires .30-06 or 7.62 by 63mm in a 20 round magazine, 500 rounds per minute, and produced between 1917 and 1945. So let's hear it. One of the slowest reloading rifles in the game. Oh, what did I just pick up? I picked up our next weapon, but in the in World War II, I would say, apart from the Shashat. But we're not going to talk about the Shashat. So next up, we have the M1919a4 Browning. It fires .30-6, which is also 7.62 by 63mm, in a 250 round belt. It does 600 rounds per minute and was produced between 1919 and 1945. So, let's hear it. So that was the M1919a4 Browning. And the next gun we move on to is the M1919a6 Browning, which I believe is the marine variant of it. You can see its looks are different compared to the... Oh wait, no you can't. You would be able to, but you can't because I messed up. But it's the marine version. It's got a stock, it has a bipod automatically attached, and it's a little bit heavier. It still fires .30-6. It still has a 250 round belt. It still does 600 rounds per minute, and it was still produced between 1919 and 1945. And it will still sound the same and shoot the same. So let's hear it. There we are. So now there is one more weapon that the Americans used to fight the Germans, and that was the Colt M1911. So just quickly, I'm going to empty out all the magazines that I have. But basically, the Colt M1911 is... It fires .45 ACP in a 7-round magazine. It fires 85 rounds a minute, and it was produced between 1911 and still is produced. Now, sadly, I don't think that the gun in the game has the sound that it needs. It sounds puny compared to what it should. So I'll let you listen to that, but yeah, let's go. And that was the Colt M1911. So now we move on to the Russian weapons, or as it would have been known as the USSR. So the first weapon is a Mosin Nagant 91/30 and the Mosin Nagant M91/30 PU. So that's the one without the scope. That is the one with the scope. So we'll have a look. There we are, Mosin Nagant M91/30. So we'll fire this one, then we'll go on to the PU variant. So let's have a look. So this gun fires 7.62 by 54mm in a 5-round internal magazine fed by clips. It fires 15 rounds per minute and it was produced between 1891 and 1973. So here is the one with the scope. We'll fire this. You can see the scope. We'll fire this now. So that was the Mosin Nagant 91/3. Next up we have more Mosin Nagants, which are the M38 and the M44. So let's see what this is. So the M38 is the carbine of the Mosin Nagant 91/30. Fires 7.62 by 54mm in a 5-round internal magazine fed by clips. 20 rounds per minute and produced between 1939 and 1945. So let's see and hear it. It won't be much different, so I'll only fire 5 rounds. And then we have the M44. Nagant M44, which is slightly darker and has a few more things changed to it, which you'll be able to see from the rifles on the table. So let's fire it. Again, only 5 rounds because it's basically the same. So yeah, what the M44 is the improved M38. Very simple really. But next we have the SVT40, which is the Russian version of the G41/G43. It fires 7.62 by 54mm in a 10-round magazine, fires 30 rounds per minute, and was produced between 1940 and 1945. So let's hear it. And that was actually the clips working on the reload, which is why I only got 5 rounds instead of 10. So I wasn't expecting that. But now we move on to the Russian PPSH-41, which is right here. Now we obviously want the drums, so we're going to swap this out for a drum, because who would use the magazine? You obviously want a drum mag. But it fires 7.62 by 25 Tokarev in a 35 round magazine or a 71 round drum mag. Fires 1,000 rounds per minute and was produced between 1941 and 1947. So, if I had a look at it, let's fire it. So that was the PPSH-41. Gotta say, one of the best submachine guns I personally think in the world. Well, not in the world, but in World War II used. So now we have the machine gun and the pistols. So the first machine gun is the DP. It fires, or the this is going to take me a while. Degtyarev DP28. It fires 7.60 by 54mm in a 47 round drum magazine, which is actually at the top there. It fires 550 rounds per minute and was produced between 1928 and 1950s. So let's hear it. So that was the DP. Next up we have the DT/DT optic. So the DT is the Degtyarev Tankovy. So this is the tank version of the DP, and we'll hear this now. As you can see, a much bigger magazine. So this is for tanks, you know, you'd often find these in tanks, and this is the optic variant, which you would find on planes and stuff. So let's put this on. It fires 7.60 by 54, same as the DP, in a 63 round drum mag. It fires 550 rounds per minute and was produced between 1928 and 1950. So as you can see, there's the optic, and here is what it looks like. So let's fire it. Right, and that's all done. So now we move on to the final bit of the Russian weapons, which are the pistols. So the first pistol we have is the Tokarev TT33. So the Tokarev TT33 fires 7.60 by 25mm in an 8 round magazine and fires 100 rounds per minute. It was produced between 1930 and 1955. So also I would like to point out how the Russian table is the only table that bullet casings seem to be on. None of the other tables have this, and I don't know why. But let's fire, shall we? So that was the TT33. Next up we have the Nagant M1895. So the Nagant M1985. No, yes, I was wrong. No, M1895 fires 7.60 by 38mm in a 7 round cylinder. Fires 55 rounds a minute and was produced between 1895 and 1945. Let's hear it fire. Ah yes, a magazine for a Nagant M1895. So that are the Russian weapons done. So now we shall move on to the best weapons of the war, obviously. No other weapon was better than this. And these are the Lee Enfield, well, the UK weapons. And the first one is the Lee Enfield #1 Mark III, which is obviously the first one there. And you know what? We're going to pick it up straight away from here. We're not, so that I can show you what the difference is. There it is, #1 Mark III. So the #1 Mark III fires .303 Mark 7 SAA ball in a 10-round internal magazine fed by clips. They can also fit a bayonet and do around 35 rounds per minute. Produced between 1904 and is still produced today, in fact. So let's hear this and see this fire. So that was the Lee Enfield No. 1 Mark III. Now we move on to the Lee Enfield No. 4 Mark 1 / Lee Enfield No. 4 Mark 1T with the No. 32 scope. So we'll start off with the regular No. 4 Mark 1, and then we'll go to the Mark 1 with the scope. So there it is, Mark 1 with scope. Let's hear this and see this fire though. So as you can see, I did a half reload there because I only needed to put in another clip because I was only missing 5 rounds. So that's something that is good about this mod, you can do that. Now we go on to the Lee Enfield with a scope. So let's watch this fire. And that is it for the rifles. And the final rifle actually is the Lyle Carbine. It fires .45 ACP in a 7-round magazine, fires 25 rounds per minute, and was produced between 1942 and 1945 for the Commandos. It is silenced, which you'll see in a minute, similar to the well rod over here, which we'll get to. So for now, let's hear it. So that was the Lyle Carbine. Now we move on to the Stent Mark II. Stent Mark II is a submachine gun that fires 9x19mm parabellum, and I have no ammo for it. Because of course I don't. Do I get ammo for it? Am I not allowed ammo for it? That doesn't work. That doesn't work. Apparently I'm not allowed ammo for it. So we shall go back to the arsenal and find some ammo for it. But the Stent Mark II fires 9x19mm parabellum in a 32 round magazine and fires 500 rounds per minute, produced between 1942 and 1945. And it's a very basic weapon, as you can see. In fact, the spring was coming out of the back there. Oh god. But let's fire it. So that is the Stent Mark II. Now we moved on to the Stent Mark V. which is much nicer than the Stent Mark II, as you can see between these models here. This one is much more refined and has wooden stuff instead of just basic metal. So we're not going to be able to see the reload on this, but it's very similar to what it would have been on the Stent Mark II. So let's hear this fire. And there we go. So that is all of the submachine guns for the Brits. Now we move on to the Brent Mark II. Now the Brent Mark II fires .303 rounds in a 30 round magazine and fires 520 rounds per minute. It was produced between 1935 and 1971. So let's shoot it. There we are. So that was the Brent Mark II. Now next up we technically have the Webley No. 4 Mark I flare gun. Now although I couldn't find anything of this, so we're just going to fire up in the air and watch it flare. So there's one flare, there's two flare, and there's three flare. That's enough of the flare gun, isn't it? Now we move on to the the Welrod Mark I. This fires 9x19 Parabellum in a 6 round magazine, does 35 rounds per minute, and was produced between 1942 and 1990. So it was used up until the Falklands War. And god damn it, does it not have any ammo again? Seriously? You're kidding me. You're kidding me. You're kidding me. Evidently not, which means that we're going to have to run over here and grab some. God, my planning really let me down today. So we go over here, grab a few magazines for it. And let's see this thing reload. So as you can see, reloading it actually takes off the grip that it has, because that is the magazine. You're holding the magazine. But let's fire it, shall we? Apparently this gun does not like to be reloaded, as is evident by the error codes that I'm getting. Next up we have the Webley Mark IV Revolver. It fires .45 ACP in a 6 round cylinder and fires 30 rounds a minute. Produced between 1887 and 1970, and it's pretty good, so let's hear it. So that was the Webley Mark IV. So that is all for the weapons on these tables. Now we move to the launchers. So to start off we have the RPZB, or the Panzerschreck, in both winter and regular, as it's called in the game. Now these fire 88mm rockets, and they were produced between 1944 and 1945. So we'll grab the regular one, or we'll grab a few rockets for it, or not. Shame. Actually, that should free up some room, because we have a lot of ammunition in our vest and things. Just tapping. Right, there we are. So let's see this thing fire, shall we? So yeah, as you can see, we missed on the Panzerfaust Patrona 30, which fires a 100mm rocket and was produced between 1942 and 1945. We were so close though, quite close. Now we have the Panzerfaust 30, this is the 60. We're doing the 60, how about that? Panzerfaust 60 fires a 149mm rocket and was produced between 1942 and 1945. So as you can see, three different ranges there that we can go for. Let's do 80. And let's hear this thing fire. And it was successful, and you see now we have a Panzerfaust used tube. So now all we need to grab is the Panzerfaust 30. And we can give this a go, shall we? So again, 149mm rocket produced between 1942 and 1945. Exactly the same as Panzerfaust 60, but with the 30 marking instead. So let's do here. Damn it, so close again. But yeah, we missed that sadly. So now we have the P8. So we've actually got two P8s here. One is found in the rifles in the arsenal, and the other one is found in the launchers in the arsenal. So the rifles one, they both fire 89mm heat rounds, along with some smoke rounds. They were both produced between 1942 and 1950, and they are both here. So actually, I can grab both of them. But there we are. So this is the rifle P8. And I forgot to grab ammo for it to reload it, so I'm just going to do that sneakily quickly. So I hope you saw the reload enough there to be happy with it. So that is the rifle one. Now, if I drop this, I get the one that's the launcher. So let's have a look at this, shall we? So again, not much difference apart from he holds it specially, which he shouldn't. Don't know why he does that. But yeah, so that is the British and German anti-tank launchers. Now we move on to the Russian and American anti-tank launchers. The first one we have is the M1a1 Bazooka, which fires 60mm rockets, and actually the Panzerfaust here was based off of the Bazooka. After the Germans saw it, it was produced between 1942 and 1945. So let's shoot it. So if you could see anything through that giant patch of smoke that it made, then congratulations, but I could not. So we can't put that back, so we shall just pop it on the floor for now. There we are. And we shall now go ahead and grab the PTRD, which is the Russian anti-tank rifle. So the Russian anti-tank rifle fires 14.5mm rounds and was produced between 1941 and 1945. So let's see this thing reload to start off with, because apparently we have to do that. And we'll fire it. And as you can see in bold red writing, you have to deploy it to fire it, so we'll do that. So as you can see, quite a good anti-tank rifle. So let's go ahead and put this back. If no, we cannot. So we'll just put it on the floor again for now. And we'll move on to the thing that I am most excited about, which is the M2 Flamethrower. So let's see, reloading it so that it lights, and I'll let you listen to this. So I think that's quite enough flamethrowering for now. Don't have much on this apart from the fact that I know it was produced between 1944 and 1978. But yeah, it takes a special kind of fuel, which you have to have in the gas tank that is behind me. And that is all of the weapons. And now we have this, the bagpipes. So theoretically, I should be able to go to self-interaction menu and weapons management. Right, I'm missing something. So yeah, you get bagpipes in this mod, because of course you do, why wouldn't you? So we somehow need to get a bagpipes chanter. Don't know how on earth we're going to do that, but we will find a way. Because I can't get it from there. So yeah, you should be, if you can get it to work, you'll be able to play bagpipes. However, I have not been able to recently, sadly. I know. Who wouldn't want to see you playing bagpipes? I know I would. And shame I can't get it working. Oh, there we are. So now we reload, and we go ahead and play Bagpipe Demo 77, so I'll let you listen to that. So yeah, this is the bagpipes. You can see what it says in the corner. I can't because that's where my audio software, no, recording software, has decided to put its thing. But yeah, so thank you all for watching. Hope you've enjoyed the video of IFA3 All-in-One Light. If you did, please consider subscribing, liking. Thank you to my good friends Lion and Virginbritish for helping me with the research on this video. The links to their stuff will be down in the description below. Also, I will be streaming tomorrow, Sunday, at around 7 to 8 British Standard Time. So feel free to hop on, join me in it. There will also be a link to that in the description. I will also put a link to the description to the mod itself on the Steam page for you to download it for yourself. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next video.